Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric. We've got another fun and random episode for you guys this Friday because we're taking a look at Racing Jam by Konami. Because recently it has been able to be emulated better, and if you watched my previous video on the Konami NWK TR board I have for Thrill Drive, that is currently still not working, but I could technically down convert it to Racing Jam and bypass the EEPROM issue I am having. So this is 1, a review of a rare and fun game, and 2, kind of a question, what do you think I should do with that board? But jumping right in, Racing Jam is one of the 3 games that run on the Konami NWK TR board, and they are all racing games. Racing Jam Chapter 2, and Thrill Drive. And I've always wanted to play Racing Jam, and now that it is able to be emulated in MAME with some consistency, I can show it off to all of you guys, because Konami does not get enough credit for the racing games they made in arcades. Thrill Drive went on to inspire the Burnout series, and Racing Jam didn't really inspire much, but it's still a pretty damn good game. And what I love about it so much right off the top is you can just see the sense of speed. Now this may be running a little bit faster than an original board because it is an emulation, but even if I cap it at 60 frames, this game still has such a great sense of fluid motion that I absolutely love it, and the handling is absolute perfection. Konami had a really great driving engine as far as physics was concerned for these games, and you get a decent amount of courses in the game as well. You get 2 circuits, 2 hill climbs, and a bunch of Gymkhana courses, which I didn't think I would enjoy that much, but I really did. And you get an awesome selection of licensed Japanese vehicles, which is always fun because I love 90s Japanese cars, European cars, boxy and square. You'll see there I took a head-on crash because this course actually doubles back on itself in the middle, and I love that. It actually reminds me of some of the Hyper Neo Geo driving games. They have a very similar vibe to them when it comes to that head-on racing action. But these are extremely rare games. They didn't do well for Konami, and trying to find an arcade cabinet for any of these games is going to be extremely difficult. So it is great that you can emulate it, but I do have the original hardware, and Racing Jam doesn't require an EEPROM chip that I'm having issues with the read on right now, so I could burn off new ROMs and make this board a Racing Jam. But you tell me down below in the comments, what do you think I should do? The hardware is functional outside of that EEPROM check. I've tested everything else, so I'm really not sure what I want to do with the board. This review is honestly just a little bit about me trying to suss out what I think would be a good idea. What you'll see here, now we have a daytime course as well. They are fun. They're maybe not the best courses I've ever played before. I think Racing Jam is a really good game to Thrill Drive. The same hardware is excellent game. And I do have that Thrill Drive board, and man, I wish it would play Thrill Drive, but I'm still struggling with it. But what is on offer here is absolutely fun. The drifting mechanics are so concretely great that when you're making a mistake, it is down to the handling of your controller and not anything that the game is giving to you. I do play an automatic here just for the capture, but with manual transmission, it is a ton of fun as well. And I just think Konami really nailed the handling of all of these vehicles that you can drive in the game, because I love drifting around the corners on these courses. What I really like is the next course coming up is a hill climb, and that's not something that you see very often at all in arcade racing games. But this circuit course here during the day, you get some good drifting in it. You can see that I am definitely fishtailing around a little bit. In some courses you can adjust the handling of your vehicles, and some you can't. Unfortunately, that's one that you can't, so you just got to be racing really well. But you'll see here, Winding Road to the hill climb course. I love this. Now, it is not the fastest course in the game, because of course you are going uphill, not downhill, so you're not going to be just driving as fast. But when you're hitting the switchbacks, when you're drifting that car around corners, the sensation of pulling off a good driving line is absolutely incredible. It kind of reminds me of being in my own personal vehicle and finding a windy road and just throwing the car around the corners as fast as I think I possibly can take it safely, which is probably a little bit faster than I should. But this game's also got a great soundtrack. Although the emulation is choppy, the soundtrack is available online on some soundtrack sites, so go ahead and listen for like 30-45 seconds, and I'll come back and talk more about the game and decide, do I want to convert my board to it? definitely a fun and catchy soundtrack. Maybe it's not the best thing I've ever heard, but it definitely fits the game really well and gets you into that intense racing action. And I will say this game looks really nice in motion too, even if it is running on MAME and not original hardware, because this is the NKWTR game that only uses one of the two video boards. Now, Racing Jam Chapter 2 and Thrill Drive used a secondary board, or at least that's what the MAME drivers say, so this might be a little bit graphically less capable than the Thrill Drive capture I did before, but I still think it looks really nice for 97-98. This is definitely something that you couldn't do on home consoles at the time. But you also have a downhill race on the same course, and they throw this sunset filter over it. My one complaint about Racing Jam and Racing Jam Chapter 2 is that they aren't the longest games in the world. You basically get 3 courses to race on: the nighttime downtown race, the track race that I just showed you before, and you have the uphill climb that allows you to also drive downhill. Those are the only 3 races you have in the game until you get to the Gymkhana aspects, and while they are fun, I wish these games had given us more tracks, because this is the type of thing, once you memorize absolutely everything, what's really going to keep you coming back to the game? Now for me, it's the rarity, and trying to get the board fixed for sure is going to make me want to play it after I get that taken care of. But this is the type of game, once you played it for 10-15 minutes, if it doesn't click with you, you're not going to keep playing it. But if it does click with you, you're going to want to do time attacks. You're going to really want to hammer down those lap times to do as best as you possibly can. Because you'll see here, after playing the game for a little bit, I am able to get a first place finish, and that does feel great once I finally figure out how to do that. But what I was actually surprised by enjoying more than I thought I would was the Gymkhana elements of this game. When you're drifting around cones, when you're going through different kind of turns. This to me I thought was just going to be a cheap addition to the game to kind of pad out the runtime. But what I found, it was actually the gameplay that I kept coming back to more and more. Now your cars handle differently in the Gymkhana. They are much looser. That back end wants to go out, but that's what you need. Practicing these courses is a lot of fun, and when you get really good at them, it feels incredible. What I really want to do is wire up a really heavy wheel to my arcade board with a clutch and with a brake and with a gas, and really kind of hammer down on learning these different tracks, because I think that's where a lot of the fun from Racing Jam actually comes. And they did ship this in 2 different cabinets, the standard racing cabinet and then a widescreen, gigantic, almost panorama cabinet as well, so I could imagine sitting in that cockpit and playing would be an absolutely awesome experience. But I can replicate that on my 4K TV with a chair if I can get this board working, which is my goal. But these Gymkhana courses are just so much fun, and it's something that I've never really played much in arcade racing games, especially not from the 90s. They are difficult to learn, they are difficult to master, but once you start getting really good at them, not like this, don't go over the grass and miss the gate, everything makes you smile. It's got that sense of driving in arcade racing games that I can't get enough of. And even though Thrill Jam inspired Burnout, I would say some of the handling aspects of Burnout feel like maybe the developers were also playing Racing Jam at the same time. If you like Burnout, you'll love Thrill Drive, and you'll definitely like Racing Jam. But like I said, there is another game in the series, and I'm working on trying to get good captures of that or get my board converted over, and that is Racing Jam Chapter 2, and that ups the arcade feel of this game to an 11, and it is the game that I actually prefer over the original Racing Jam. But with that EEPROM issue, I still cannot get that booting on my board either. But you will see here, up until the point where this freezes, because it loves to freeze more than ice on a January day in Chicago. And this one is more fun. You've got jumps. It just feels way more faster paced, and I definitely want to play the whole game and try to get my board running. But you tell me, should I try to make this play Thrill Drive, even though I already have a capture and it emulates really well? Should I down convert the ROMs to run the original Racing Jam? Or should I throw all that out the window and try to get this board repaired and running Racing Jam Chapter 2 for original arcade captures? Because this board functions outside that EEPROM, and it means it will eventually do something. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hit like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And I'm just curious, what should I do with this board? Because it's got me perplexed. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.